And welcome to Columbia Journalism. Hope you've tweeted with our hashtag. We remain a school that's about reporting, about storytelling, about journalism.
I'm just coming from Mexico. And the thing is that when the government was saying something, everybody was tweeting another thing. The media just took the story coming from the Twitter and they made the same mistake if you go to any other source. They never ask again or twice about what was going on with the story in Twitter. Really, you need to be working as any other time as journalists, to question or to ask twice to the sources, to check all the facts, to review all the information. We need to pay more attention on the people that it's in the other side of a computer or a cell phone. Really, we need to understand what's going on with them, because that's the most important thing for us as journalists.
We're seeing the rise of all this traffic coming in from social media platforms, so on Twitter, on Facebook, StumbleUpon, Dig. All these sources are continually sending us more and more traffic to the point where that community, the size of our community, is almost the size of this audience that's coming in from Google and has traditionally found news via search engines, via Google News, via aggregators. So we're starting to see people increasingly consume content on iPhones, Android, in more recent months, tablets. We have an iPhone app with more than 150,000 users. We have a Facebook page with more than 300,000 fans. We're on Kindle, we're on iPad. 3 or 4 years ago, we were generating the bulk of our revenue on Google AdSense, traditional banner networks. What we're seeing demand from advertisers is they want to be part of the conversation. So if you look at how Mashable's monetizing today, a lot of it comes from what we call sponsored programs. So it's this idea of the brand engaging with consumers through content as opposed to the traditional advertising that we were seeing in the forms of banners and text ads just a couple of years ago. Over the last few months, we've seen both what are called set-top boxes, things like Google TV, Apple TV, hitting the market. You're also seeing most big screen television ship with internet connectivity. Consumers are just going to have essentially what amounts to unlimited choice in terms of the video content they consume on their televisions. They're going to have access to any publisher. Anyone can become a video publisher. I think you're going to see new television networks emerge, new programs that are reaching millions of viewers and don't necessarily have a presence on NBC or Fox. The same thing is going to happen in the car. So you're already seeing connected vehicles from companies like Ford and Toyota that are essentially using your phone as a radio that hooks into the car stereo system. But if you look further out, cars themselves are going to be able to hook into 4G networks, LTE, technologies like that, to create this experience on the radio that, much like online with blogs, much like we're going to see with television, on the radio you're going to have essentially unlimited choice of content.
Customers do want a lot of different types of content. A professional base wants a brand, and they do want Reuters News. We're doing far more multimedia. We launched something called Insider Video and hired more than 100 journalists for that. My 16-year-old does rely on Twitter feeds as her news. She figures that like-minded people are going to point out stories that she cares about. My 16-year-old, when she was 14, actually set up my Facebook account, and all I requested was that, try to make it cool in some way, because I don't know how to do this. So she was my first Facebook friend, in addition to, I think Shri was my second. So my 14-year-old also became the first person to unfriend me. Because I only had 2 friends to look at their profiles, their pages. And so I'm looking at hers and I said, why are you part of the National Skip School Day? Unfriend, down to 1 friend. I pretty much had the same picture of myself and Betty White at the White House Correspondents' Dinner in April. And my 13-year-old said, the difference between me and you is that I change my profile picture all the time.
If I learn how to shoot photos or if I know how to use Twitter, then I am suddenly a multimedia journalist. But I'm here to tell you that journalism itself is changing, and it's a perpetual change. It's sort of like getting on a train that keeps going to different stations. You can get off at the first station and know, just a little bit about journalism, but to become an engaging and an effective journalist, you have to stay on the train and keep changing with journalism. You don't have to know everything or present everything to your readers because you're just going to bombard them. Editors, at first when I came in the newsroom and I told them that their story was unwebbable, not boring, but just it wouldn't make for great web content, it would sort of give me sideways glances and like, what? You're not going to put like a photo slideshow with it? And I'm like, no, because you're just going to turn people off with trying to create something that they're not going to be interested in. So let's focus our energy on the stories that are good.
So the people that find a way to reach through the RSS reader, reach through Twitter, reach through YouTube, whatever the tools, whatever the platforms, whatever the networks are, and have a really kind of meaningful interaction with you, that the other guys aren't doing that. Maybe these, whatever you call them, publishers, journalists, they're showing up now and participating in networks that are really, I mean, so noisy, so dominated by users and friends and things that are otherwise, you know, hostile to Reuters, to the New York Times. But some of these guys have figured out how to kind of work their way in there. And when they get in, having that Reuters name attached to it, or that logo, or the New York Times logo, or the Newsweek brand, carries a lot of weight. It can be a really vindicating force, where when we see, and we've seen this over and over again now, or we're starting now to see this as really emergent behavior on Tumblr. When Newsweek, when the New Yorker, when NPR can show up on the network and be a real positive participating force in the community, that brand carries a tremendous amount of weight, because now the space where you were used to just seeing all of your friends, following some interesting blogs, now all of a sudden you have these, even if you weren't a Newsweek reader before, these recognizable brands and the credibility associated with it now attached to this stuff that you're doing. There are millions of people on this thing that are like posting this really cool stuff. We realized that our network was actually turning into like a network. There was cool stuff there that we wanted to follow, and we basically said, can we repurpose this dashboard that already does a really good job of representing your content? Can we feed other people's content in there and make it look just as good? That's where the Tumblr dashboard sort of emerged, where we just, through a Twitter following model on top of it, we gave a lot of attention towards those little pieces of media and how they look when they get to your dashboard, the ways to interact with them, the fact that you can, when something interesting comes up in your dashboard, you can reblock it and put it on your blog, giving them attribution. We did 1 billion impressions to blogs. We did 1.5 billion impressions to the dashboard. So most of that activity on Tumblr, actually Tumblr users sitting on their dashboard, hitting refresh all day, looking at new stuff coming up.
Increasingly, smartphones and tablets being shipped with geolocation capabilities. What that enables is very targeted, locally targeted advertising, and you've already seen that to a huge scale in just the last year with companies like Groupon that have went to zero to multi-billion-dollar valuations in the course of a year and a half.
By the way, on the President Obama's visit to India, as a consumer of South Asian news, the value of social media was very relevant, not just in following the White House press corps. I saw stuff that made it to air many hours later, or made it to the print many hours later, was first being broken on Twitter by the staff, by reporters as they were doing this. Very interesting to see that.
There's an audience here who doesn't even read anything in whatever it is, the New Yorker, they don't listen to NPR, Fresh Air, and yet these organizations have been able to show up, do something really, really interesting that either breaks into a brand new audience, connects with their existing audience in a brand new way, or creates a new way for their most engaged fans to connect that much more deeply.
Where I see things going over the next 4 or 5 years, I think there's tremendous opportunities for people with journalism skills to leverage these tools and build a personal brand. So kind of how I got started, beyond having my own startups and things like that, and just always having an interest in technology, was with my own blog. That's how Pete Cashmore discovered me, how I started writing for Mashable, and ultimately how I became editor and have had this great opportunity to lead this awesome website.
I remember one of my teachers in the university, I was complaining, as usual, because he was not teaching me how to use the camera. You remember 20 years ago the camera were big, and for women it was impossible almost to carry one of them. So when I was complaining that he was not teaching us about technology, he told me, you should be reading Heidegger, you should be watching what's going on in the community, instead of be complaining about how to learn to use that camera.